Here are the top stories for today, May 14, 2021. More Filipinos are one step closer to getting vaccinated as a bulk vaccine doses is set to arrive in the coming months. The government also assures the AstraZeneca vaccines will be used before its expiry. The NCR Plus areas placed under general community quarantine, but heightened restrictions will remain in place to stem the spread of COVID-19. The government imposes a temporary ban on travelers from Oman and the United Arab Emirates. The travel ban on the whole Indian subcontinent is also extended until end May. And a call for restraint. The United Nations urges parties to halt hostilities as casualties from the exchange of fire between Israel and Palestinian militants continue to mount. Good day, I'm Marita Muaje. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The government ensures swift distribution and administration of the COVID-19 vaccines in the country, as supplies are now coming in bulk. The details from William Theo.
Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said the country's inoculation capacity has reached 83,000 per day and will increase in the coming days. Galvez said that with the arrival of the bulk of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines, the Philippines may receive 2.2 million doses later this month. Aside from Pfizer, he said another 2 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccines will also be delivered either June or July. Galvez assures that the soon-to-expire vaccines will be fully utilized before the due dates. He said the government will also activate more vaccination sites. Inoculation of the priority sector under the A4 category is expected in June. Meanwhile, President Rodrigo Duterte urged local government units to immediately roll out immunization once COVID-19 vaccines reach their respective communities.
So kailangan pagdating doon sa inyo, papatakbo na kaagad ninyo yung administrative, pati siguro mga local, may mga hospital. Magtulong-tulungan na lang so that we would not waste the vaccines because we were not able to deliver it on time. That would be a problem kung mag-expire yan dito sa kamay sa itaas at hindi kaagad napunta doon sa baba. At ang conversely, kung ang baba naman hindi prepared.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque earlier assured that the 2 million AstraZeneca doses will be used up before they expire.
Wala pong problema yan kasi ang expiration date ay July. Mayo pa lang po. Isang buwan lang ang ating kailangan para ubusin yung 2 million po yan na AstraZeneca.
For the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo.
The government has downgraded Metro Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal, also known as NCR Plus, to a more relaxed General Community Quarantine or GCQ from May 15 to 31. However, heightened restrictions will remain in place in these areas. Apart from NCR Plus, the quarantine classification in Abra was also downgraded from MECQ to GCQ. GCQ is imposed in Apayao, Baguio City, Benguet, Kalinga, Mountain Province, Cagayan, Isabela, Nueva Vizcaya, Batangas, Quezon, Iligan City, Davao City, Lanao del Sur, and Puerto Princesa City until May 31. Meanwhile, the modified ECQ status is retained in Santiago City, Isabela, as well as Zamboanga City, QUIRINO, and IFUGAO until the end of the month. The rest of the country remains under the least restrictive modified GCQ. What are allowed and not allowed under GCQ with heightened restrictions? Only essential travel in and out of the NCR Plus will be allowed. Interzonal travel from NCR Plus areas, except those conducted by authorized persons, outside residence will remain prohibited. Public transportation shall remain operational at such capacities and protocols following the guidelines from the Department of Transportation. Only individuals aged 18 to 65 can leave their homes. The following are not allowed under GCQ with heightened restrictions: entertainment venues like bars, concert halls, and theaters, recreational venues such as internet cafes, billiard halls and arcades, amusement parks, fairs, playgrounds, kiddie rides, indoor sports, courts and venues, and indoor tourist attractions, and venues for meetings, conferences, exhibitions, religious gatherings and gatherings for necrological services, wakes, internment, and funerals for those who died of causes other than the COVID-19 in NCR Plus will be allowed up to 10% of the venue capacity. Indoor dine-in services in NCR Plus shall be at 20% venue or sitting capacity, while outdoor or alfresco dining shall be at 50% venue or sitting capacity. Outdoor tourist attractions in NCR Plus may be opened at 30% with strict adherence to minimum public health standards. Also allowed at 30% capacity are non-contact sports, games, scrimmages held outdoors, as well as personal care services that do not require mask removal. And since May is a month of festivities in most part of the country, President Rodrigo Duterte urged the public to just skip it for the meantime. He said he would not tolerate any individuals who will defy the existing health and quarantine protocols imposed by the government.
Sabi ko lang na Mayo, maraming fiesta. Forgo to congregate, to crowd, and to hold. I will not allow the violations of the guidelines given by the task force. And I will hold the local governments down to the last barangay level, and therefore, it could only be the barangay captains. I will hold you responsible for any violation sa itong mga batas na hindi tutupad. So you have to enforce it, because if you want this country to recover from the onslaught of COVID-19, you have to be mindful of the what is going on and how to prevent it.
President Rodrigo Duterte has accepted the resignation of Nayong Filipino Foundation Executive Director Lucine Karen Malilong Isberto. Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles confirmed this without giving any further details. Isberto opposed the construction of the vaccination facility within the Nayong Filipino property in Parañaque City, saying it has legal and environmental concerns. Nograles meanwhile said the memorandum of agreement between the government and business tycoon Enrique, who is the proponent of the mega vaccination site, is now being finalized. He also allayed concerns that trees and wildlife would be affected by the construction. In a separate press briefing, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque reminded the Nayong Filipino Foundation of its role as a government-owned and controlled corporation.
Lahat po ng GOCC under pa rin sa office ng presidente. Hindi po ibig sabihin na palibasa may board sila ay hindi nila po pwedeng ipatupad ang mga pulisiya ng gobyerno. Yung gagawing mega vaccination site po dyan is the exercise of police power dahil kinakailangan pong itaguyod ang kalusugan ng lahat sa gitna ng pandemya. Kinakailangan po sumunod ang Nayong Pilipino.
The Department of Health is set to sign a deal with Nayong Filipino Foundation for the construction of the mega vaccination facility. Health Secretary Francisco Duque, who is one of the primary signatories of the agreement, said legal paperwork for the agreement is currently being readied. President Rodrigo Duterte remains firm on his commitment to fighting corruption until the end of his term. During his talk to the people Thursday night, Duterte said there will always be corruption as long as there is a running bureaucracy. There is money involved and there are a lot of tables where the papers will go through. He said the most that people can do is to fight it. In October 2020, the President ordered the Department of Justice to investigate allegations of corruption in the entire government. Last month, the Anti-Red Tape Authority and the Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission signed a memorandum of agreement to strengthen the government's fight against corruption and bureaucracy. The MOA aims to align and integrate their functions in handling complaints and reports of violations. The government is preparing for the possible repatriation of Filipinos from Israel, this amid the heaviest fighting between Israeli forces and Palestinian militants. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the Philippine Embassy in Israel and the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, are experts in ensuring the safety of Filipinos there. Roque said the Philippine government will go on a special mission to fetch distressed Filipinos if need be. A total of 29,473 Filipinos are currently working and residing in Israel. No Filipino casualties have been reported amid the escalating exchange of airstrikes and rocket fires between Israel and Palestinian militant group Hamas. The Philippine Embassy in Tel Aviv earlier advised the Filipino community in Israel to stay vigilant and postpone or cancel travel plans to places near the border of Gaza. The embassy also told them to avoid approaching the Israeli security forces stationed in sensitive areas. In case of emergency, the embassy may be reached at 00972 54466 1188. The travel ban imposed on passengers from India and 4 other countries such as Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka is extended until the end of the month. The ban, which was earlier imposed until May 14, is extended in a bid to prevent the entry of the new double mutant COVID-19 variant that is responsible for New Delhi's worst coronavirus outbreak. The COVID-19 variant first detected in India carries 2 mutations, E484Q and L425R. Experts say the E484Q mutation is similar to the E484K mutation, or the escape mutation, which helps the virus get past the body's immune system, while L452R is found to be an efficient spreader of the virus. The Philippines has reported 2 cases of India's double mutant B.1.617 variant. The government also includes Oman and UAE in the travel ban, following the recommendation of the Department of Health and the Department of Foreign Affairs. Passengers from Oman and UAE who are already in transit and arrive before May 15 will not be subject to the travel restrictions but will undergo stricter quarantine and testing protocols. Meanwhile, let us take a look at the COVID-19 figures worldwide. Still to come, over 600 teachers in Caraga sever ties with a group linked to the communist movement. And Ilocos Norte and La Union join forces to revive the tourism industry. Details ahead, this is the PNA Newsroom.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Malacanang urged Congress to craft a measure that would strengthen the Philippines' claim over the Kalayaan Island Group. This following the reported presence of nearly 300 Chinese maritime militia vessels in the area. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque stressed the need to pass a law amending Presidential Decree 1596 to enable the Philippines to have an effective occupation of Kalayaan Group of Islands. PD 1596, issued in 1978 by the late President Ferdinand Marcos, anchors its claim over the island by attaching it to Palawan Province.
So uulitin ko po ang aking hihingi sa ating mga mambabatas. Kinakailangan po tayo bumuo ng bagong batas para po magkaroon ng mas malakas na angkulo ang ating titulo dyan po sa Kalayaan Island Groups. At ang importansya nga po nito, yung batas na ginagamit natin para maging kabahagi ng ating teritoryo, ang Kalayaan Island Group ay isa sa ebidensya ng effective occupation.
An official of the Philippine Army cited the bravery of several teachers in the Caraga region who broke away from the leftist group Alliance of Concerned Teachers. Brigadier General Maurito Licodine, commander of the Army's 402nd Infantry Brigade, said the teachers who renounced their membership need to be emulated by other sectors that are still being deceived by front organizations of the communist terrorists CPP, NPA, and DF. Last Thursday, at least 604 elementary and secondary teachers from Butuan City disaffiliated and withdrew their support for ACT. Ray Collado, the district supervisor of Southwest District of DepEd Butuan, led the disaffiliation of the 604 teachers. ACT, along with KMU, KMP, Gabriela, League of Filipino Students, and Cadena, was named by CPP founding chairman Jose Maria Sison in 1987 as part of the CPP-NPA's democratic forces in advancing their Philippine Revolution. Overseas Filipinos arriving in Cebu on the way to other provinces will be asked to present a letter of acceptance from the local government of their destination. More on this in today's provincial roundup from Chris Mundo.
Returning overseas Filipinos and OFWs arriving at Mactan Cebu International Airport but whose final destination is outside Cebu Province will now be asked to present a letter of acceptance from the local government of their destination. This apart from a negative RT-PCR result and proof of connecting flight. Cebu Governor Gwendolyn Garcia underscored the need to intensify border control to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and its variants originating abroad. Due to lack of accommodation for OFWs and ROFs who are waiting for the result of their RT-PCR test, the MCIA stopped the operation from May 14 to 15 with flights into Cebu cancelled. In Ilocos Norte, all authorized persons outside residents in Lawag who are coming from lockdown areas are required to show a negative antigen test taken within 7 days when crossing village checkpoints. Authorities already established several checkpoints in strategic areas with confirmed COVID-19 positive cases. The city was placed under general community quarantine for 2 weeks since Thursday. Of the 80 barangays in the city, 44 have active COVID-19 cases. Ilocos Norte Governor Matthew Joseph Manotoc appealed to all Lawagueños to follow all safety protocols. Meanwhile, police from areas under modified enhanced community quarantine or higher are now required to present a negative RT-PCR result taken within 72 hours upon entering Ilocos region. Ilocos Police Regional Office Director Brigadier General Emmanuel Peralta said this is to ensure the safety of the residents of the region. The directive is also a preventive or precautionary measure of the police who are on the frontliners. Some 243 police personnel in the region have been inoculated with the COVID-19 vaccine. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
The provinces of Ilocos Norte and La Union have joined forces to revive tourism in their areas. Ilocos Norte Governor Matthew Joseph Manotoc said he looks forward to working closely with the La Union in promoting both provinces as safe and worthy travel destinations. La Union Governor Francisco Emmanuel Ortega III said the united efforts between these two provinces is vital during this pandemic. A new tourism campaign entitled I'm in Love is circulating on online platforms to showcase both provinces as popular surfing and diving destinations, including other new normal tourism activities. As part of the tourism recovery plan, joint events such as trade shows can be organized to benefit both parties. They also agreed to promote the surfing areas in San Juan, La Union, as well as in Pagudpud and Badoc in Ilocos Norte. Up next, the palace allays fears over the release of designated terrorists by the Anti-Terrorism Council. And the United Nations urges Israel and Palestinian militants to stop hostilities as their worst conflict in years continues to claim lives. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. Malacanang assured the public that they have nothing to fear after the Anti-Terrorism Council released resolutions listing at least 29 so-called identified terrorists. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque allayed fears that anyone critical of the government can just be identified as terrorist without evidence and due process. He previously said if arrests of persons critical of the government would infringe the minimum standards set by the Bill of Rights, it will be declared unconstitutional by the courts. Roque also said the list would authorize the Anti-Money Laundering Council to freeze a property or funds possibly related to the financing of terrorism. The Armed Forces of the Philippines has expressed its support to the ATC's resolution. For its part, the Philippine National Police said these individuals will not be arrested on the sole basis of the ATC listing. The ATC formally designated Communist Party of the Philippines founder Jose Maria Sison and 18 others as well as 10 members of the Abu Sayyaf group and other extremist groups as terrorists. The CPP-NPA was tagged for aiming to overthrow the government by seizing the consolidating political power through violent means. The ATC also named as terrorists 10 members of the Abu Sayyaf group, which has been previously designated as a terrorist organization by the UN Security Council. Justice Undersecretary Adrian Sugay, a member of the DOJ Technical Working Group, criminal complaints may be filed against them once they are determined to have violated the ATA, the revised penal code, and other laws. In our news overseas, the United Nations voiced its support for efforts to de-escalate the conflict in Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed the need to seek a reduction of violence to protect the lives of civilians in what he called unacceptable circumstances. Guterres reiterated the UN's readiness to help Palestine and Israel resolve contradictions peacefully, including using the Quartet on the Middle East format, namely UN, US, EU, and Russia. He also urged adherence to the two-state solution, which envisions an independent state of Palestine alongside Israel. Tensions have been running high in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of East Jerusalem since last week, when an Israeli court ordered the eviction of Palestinian families. Protests against the court order led to residents being targeted by Israeli forces, which escalated to airstrikes by Israel on Gaza that have left scores dead and hundreds wounded. In sports, former PBA star Macmac Cardona will spearhead the Zamboanga City lineup that will play in the Mindanao leg of the Pilipinas Vismin Super Cup starting May 30. The former PBA Finals most valuable player has been tapped by Coach Tony Pardo to lead a star-studded lineup. Joining Cardona are fellow ex-PBA players Larry Rodriguez, Gabi Espinas, and JP Belencion, along with young guns Jonard Clarito and Aaron Heruta. Letran Knights star and finals MVP Fran Yu has also been tapped to play for Zamboanga City. Also vying for the Mindanao pennant are Zamboanga del Sur, Rojas, Pagadian, Ozamis, and Iligan. The winner of the Mindanao leg will take on Visayas leg champion Mandaue in the grand finals next month. Residents and authorities joined hands to rescue a stranded false killer whale in Barangay Igia, Dasul, Pangasinan. The false killer whale, weighing about 500 kilograms, was named Hope and is now under the care of the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources in Alaminos City. Before, Ilocos Region Officer in Charge Rosario Segundina Gaerlan said Hope was first seen in Culebra Island in Dasol Town on May 10. It was later seen stranded on the shore of Barangay Igia on May 11. The residents coordinated with authorities for it to be rescued and brought to BIFAR Alaminos. Gaerlan advised the public to stop using illegal waste and materials for fishing and to take care of the ocean to maintain a biodiversity, which includes false killer whales and their kind. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. More Filipinos are one step closer to getting vaccinated as a bulk vaccine doses is set to arrive in the coming months. The government also assures the AstraZeneca vaccines will be used before its expiry. The NCR Plus area is placed under general community quarantine, but heightened restrictions will remain in place to stem the spread of COVID-19. The government imposes a temporary ban on travelers from Oman and the United Arab Emirates. The travel ban on the whole Indian subcontinent is also extended until end May. And a call for restraint. The United Nations urges parties to halt hostilities as casualties from the exchange of fire between Israel and Palestinian militants continue to mount. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. We tell stories that inspire change. I'm Marita Muaje. Have a good day.